so I'm the last one to get here, so I'll start it off. I'm Rob Thomas, in my 9 to 5. I'm an analyst for the Michigan State Police, a FOIA analyst. Outside of that, I'm a part-time realtor, and then the reason I'm here today is because I'm a firearms instructor with the Advocates.
My name is LaMaris, Rodger, Lansing, Michigan, born and raised. My 9 to 5 is I work at Board of Water and Light. I get yelled at all day long, so my conflict resolution skills get sharpened daily. My passion, God's calling for me, is to be a self-defense firearms instructor. I got into that because I was a victim of a violent crime, and I made a promise to myself and my mom I would never be a victim again. So in that, I found my calling.
Mike Lynn, CEO of Lansing Empowerment Network, also founder of the Village Lansing, and co-owner of the Advocates Firearms Academy.
Oh yeah, okay. President of a nonprofit, Malcolm Little Gun Club, which we need to get y'all in. Vice president of Malcolm Little Gun Club.
So we get started? All right, so I want y'all to look at this stat sheet that I brought. So I want to set the understanding of why all of this self-awareness and all of that is really important to plan, understanding how to be prepared. If you look at the stats of non-negligent homicide, up at the top of this right here, this is the number that a lot of people are always talking about. When you hear on the news, they talk about we had 12 homicides last year. This year we've only had 3 as compared to last year's 5, all of that. That's the number. If you look at 2013, we had 8. And then in 2023 now, we had 12. So we see in between that, in 2021, we jumped up to 25. We know that was like young people, cyclical retaliatory gunfire. That's what brought advanced peace here. That's when a lot of nonprofits got popping off with gun violence prevention and so on and so forth. One thing to understand about this is this doesn't account for everybody shot. This only accounts for people who died. What's the difference between dying and getting shot? An inch. What's the difference between not getting shot and getting shot at? Maybe an inch or half an inch. So everything is in minor steps, and the problem with that is we only really account for the stats of death. That's the only really one a lot of people talk about. But the non-fatal shootings, the non-fatal shots fired, 80 non-fatal shootings last year, right? 80 people might have gotten shot, 60 people might have gotten shot. They just didn't die, so they didn't get added to this number. So we have this false sense of like security when we hear the news and media say, we're down 80% in gun violence this year, as pertains to last year. This will be February. And when you ask that question, you say, okay, so what does that number mean? What does 80% mean? They say, well, last year we had 3, this year we only had 1 to this date. That's not 80%. That's 80% technically data-wise, but 80% when we all think is there's 100 people that got killed last year and this year it's only 20. That's how people see these stats. Another thing is when we think about this, the 80% number or the 50% number, it's going off of like 50% down from our spike. Our spike was in 2022, as you see, or 2021, 25. So they're gauging everything off the biggest spike that we had, not what our average number is. And why I want to say this, I'm telling y'all this because when y'all watch stats on news and so on and so forth, I want y'all to really understand what it means. But if you think about 100 firefighters, I should have told you that. I was a professional firefighter in the city of Lansing too for 10 years. But anyways, when you think about that number, 100 is how many firefighters die in the country yearly. It may be 105, it may be 95, maybe 110, but for the most part, averaged out is 100 firefighters that die in the line of duty. And the reason that is because you have non-professional firefighters or volunteer firefighters who don't train. They don't have the physical ability to run into a fire. A lot of them are jumping out of bed at night with bad hearts and big bodies and trying to go fight fires, and people are passing out and dying. So when they talk about like how to get that number down, you have to address that problem. Otherwise, it's going to stay static. That's the static we want to find is where's the static number in our gun violence, and what's the static number in our assaults, and what's the static number in our rapes. And for over the last 20 years, what's the static number? And then we want to drop that number from 80%, not the spike. We don't want to talk about the spike that happened naturally like throughout the whole country in 2022 or 2021. Violence spiked all over the place, right? But we have an average that we've had for the last 20 years of violence, and that's the number we want to pay attention to. And that number is really high for us in Lansing. So that's why I'm telling you this, is that Lansing has always been a somewhat dangerous place to be. It may not feel dangerous because we're not really involved in it. A lot of people don't live directly where the problem is, but it is a dangerous place to be. If you look at these stats, arson, robbery, aggravated assault, 1,027 aggravated assaults last year in 2023. 1,027 people got aggravated. And aggravated assault means assault that people had to go to the hospital. That's what that means. So it was bad enough they had to go to the hospital. So this is the nature of what we're dealing with in our city. That really a lot of times when you get the stats from like the city or nonprofits that are working on this problem, they don't really want you to know how bad it seriously is, because that means they may not be doing as good a job as they might want. They might want people to think, right? Or they may tell you the problem is worse but manageable if we had more money. And my job, from what I do in the city, is I tell the truth about those things. It's not 100 people shooting, it may only be 30. But a nonprofit may say 100 because that's a manageable number that has a dollar amount to it, and we can attach that to it to get money, but we need to know what's really happening in our community. And ultimately, when you think about gun violence in our city, there's a very small amount of people that are doing it. But when you think about gun violence, you may not be the person that's going to be a victim of it, because you might not be involved in that, or you may not be in that area or around the stuff that's going on. But rape, assault, aggravated assault, all those type road rages that turn into assaults, those all come from situations like vertical violence, right? And horizontal violence. Everybody heard that term? Vertical violence? So some of you all probably work in spaces where you might, LaMaris works in a space where vertical violence is probably perpetuated. He's not doing it because he's a good guy. But Border, Water, and Light is a place where people call on their worst time of day, right? And they might get some person that's aggravated with life on the phone, treats them like crap, won't really help them find their issue, so they get off that phone call feeling worse than they called. Or, you know, vertical violence can come from your job, right? Your boss is getting on you, discrimination is happening. Whatever the case is, vertical violence a lot of times are things you can't really affect change with. It's something that's just happening to you. So when we can't affect change with it, we get out into the world and then we perpetuate horizontal violence, the violence that I perpetuate on you, because I can touch you, I can get to you. And this is a lot of times what happens in the regular world, outside of the cyclical retaliatory gunfire, is that vertical violence is hitting somebody so bad that they eventually get so angry that they walk out to East Lansing and go through a dorm and shoot 5 people. That's what vertical violence is. And so we're trying to interrupt those situations like that, but ultimately that stuff is still out here. And so when I talk to people about why you should have a plan, why you should have preparedness and all of that, is because you need to understand the world we're living in. And I didn't really understand it either until I started, because when I became a firefighter and I was an EMT, and I recognized people get stabbed, cut, beat up, shot every day. It just doesn't always hit the media. So stabbings, I mean, almost every day you got 2 or 3 of those. Domestic violence that turn into beatings where people are unconscious, we picked up. You know, women that gotten just, you know, in my opinion, like, it's close to murder. They lived it, but they came out really bad on the situation. So those are times that I think, like, how are people prepared? And so my part of this portion I want to talk to y'all about is that. What is it to be prepared? What is it to have a plan? Why should you? These crime stats should show you why you should be. And if you live in hope, if you live in, like, so this is another thing about us as African Americans. We get some money, we move up out of the space, right? So we get ourselves away from the problem. We think anyways. But our whole life, family, and all of our job and everything is still in that space. So we think as affluent African Americans in the city, like, oh, I got my money straight, I'm not involved in anything. I shouldn't have to worry about nothing. But you do. You still got to travel through them same spaces where all these people are living in poverty, housing, stomachs growling, they hungry, and you dealing with all of that. And you know what's so funny about it is that we seem to target each other, right? 85% of the gun violence in the city of Lansing happens to African Americans. 85%. So it's definitely our issue and definitely our problem. So I want to just talk about real quick plan, and I'm gonna hand it off. Everybody should have a plan. I mean, that's obvious. How you're gonna respond to a situation, an incident when it happens, and that's just in life, period. If my lights go out, what plan do I have, right? If I run out of gas, what plan do I have? In most cases, it's even, we may not have thought about it, but the plan is I'm gonna call my wife, bring me a gas can. That's a plan. I just didn't think about it ahead of time. I just kind of knew that was there. But what happens if you don't have a real solid plan in place and things hit the fan and you haven't thought about it prior to that, you're screwed. That's when people always think they're gonna fall back on whatever they believe their supernatural abilities are. I don't really have to plan for this. For instance, and I'll give you this real quick synopsis of this, how this looks in 2020, about March of 2020. Everybody kind of remember what took place then? The pandemic, right? And so I can remember in 2020, it was like March 14th or something. I was sitting in the bar. I was watching like the NCAA brackets, and they were talking about who was going to play, and Michigan State was on their way to go do big things and all of this. And I remember on one screen, the stuff was playing on the NCAA, and on another screen, they were showing China. and they were showing how these body bags and people was falling out just walking down the street, and all these things were happening, right? And so whatever the case is, my guy was telling me, he was like a salesman at Myers, and he was like, man, it's getting hard to get stuff over here, you know, because of all this going on over there. And I can remember thinking in my mind, before I had any of this preparedness understanding, I was kind of living for like how most people do. I remember thinking like, this is America though, that stuff don't happen here. Like, we gonna be straight. We ain't gotta worry about that. Ebola happened, we didn't have to worry about it. Like, I just figured, I was like, we gonna be good. We in America. No less than like 3 days later, it was here. It had already been here for months, probably at that point in time. But my question to y'all is, we all had all the warnings. We had all the warning signs. How did we prepare? And in the situation when it did hit the fan and they said, COVID is here, and we started seeing people fall out in New York, what do we all do? What did the whole country do?
Buy toilet paper.
Stay in the house.
What'd they do? They went and bought toilet paper. So is that a plan?
No.
And that's the plan? That we say that when stuff hit the fan, when stuff, I guess they went and got toilet paper to wipe the stuff off the fan? So the whole point is, that's how you respond as human beings when we don't have a plan. We follow suit. We follow the neighbor. What's the neighbor doing? Oh, they got a bunch of toilet paper. They must know something we don't know, because we don't educate ourselves either on these things. So we just go do what everybody else did. My goal is to get everybody, when we started the Advocates, when I started this in 2020, it was about that. Teaching the plan, the thought process, because too many people are walking around blissfully ignorant. We got good jobs, and now we even noticing that ain't even affected now. 401ks are dropping. Like I said, my bank account, I had to pull all my stuff out. Because I'm like, yo, it started falling like at like 20%, 30%. You know what I mean? So like, I had to yank it out. That's happening to a lot of people right now. So people are starting to panic. Have no real plan for any of that. So point being, with a plan, this is what I'll say to you. Think about your day-to-day in your life as it moves. Most people go from one job to their house. They take the same route. They cross paths the same places. They actually kind of use this as like, people use this as like a badge of honor that they know their clerk at their gas station they get their gas at all the time. Or I'm so familiar with my store where I stop to get my beer on the way home, and I know everybody there. The problem is that when vertical violence is happening, and you may not even know you're perpetuating that on somebody, and they want you dead. And human beings are the easiest thing to kill, like honestly, because we are so oblivious to the world around us. So when I'm talking about this, I'm saying from the perspective of change your patterns and paths. That's part of your plan right there. If you're going from home to work or whatever the case is, how many of y'all drove here today by a raise of hands? One person tell me how many lights you passed. Quick.
5.
5. Which ones? Name them quick.
Kavanaugh, Pennsylvania, Miller, Edgewood.
Now tell me how many of them were yellow. You can't, but that's okay. You know why it's okay? You know why it's okay? Because when you seen it was yellow, you did what you're supposed to do, right? You sped up.
Right. When I sped up, the other one I slowed down.
The point I'm making is that when you have situational awareness and you have a plan, you don't necessarily have to think about these things. They just happen. And that's what happens when your mind loses and things happen to you. You don't have time to think. You just go into survival mode, right? And so that's the whole point, is that as we drive down the street, we don't think about lights and all of that stuff. We think about everything else in the world. But I hit that brake and slow down. I hit that gas and speed through as I'm supposed to. So when you think about a plan, my plan, I've devised in my mind about how I'm going to respond to armed robbery, how I will respond to rape if I see somebody being raped in front of me, is why we're named the Advocates. I would want to be an advocate in that scenario. So I plan my life around being an advocate. I carry enough ammunition. I carry a firearm everywhere that I go. I'm always in a position where if I see something happening to our people or somebody that I want to protect is being harmed, that's my plan. That's not everybody's plan. But part of my plan means that I got to be in shape to do that too. So I'm not going to call myself an advocate, or I'm not Batman, but I can't say I'm going to do these things and then be out here out of shape, don't know how to fight, don't know how to use my firearm, don't really have any situational awareness. So I plan for that because that's part of my plan. Tell you guys how to build a plan based off of all this. Again, parts of it is don't take your same route all the time and everywhere you go. Change it up sometimes, because you don't know what your situation could be or what somebody wants to do to you, or somebody could be stalking you down. And again, that being easy to attack piece, right? So just make yourself harder to attack. Pay attention to your surroundings around you, what's going on. These are all part of your plan. These are things that I'm going to do every time I leave the house. When I go to the gas station, I'm not listening to the video that's playing on the thing. I'm watching my surroundings and what's going on around me. some stuff going on over there, we always like, that ain't my business. That is definitely your business. Watch it. Pay attention to what's going on with it. Because that's going to tell you how you need to move afterwards, right? When you walk into a store, you can name any store in the city of Lansing. If I've been in there, I can remember it. Like, I walked in here once, I can map this whole space out right now. I can tell you how it is because I just catch things as I move around. And so the point of that is, that's the same thing you should be doing as part of your plan as you're moving through the house, or as you're moving through your own house, or you're moving through a store. Where's the exits at? That's a real simple question you should ask yourself every time you walk in some place. Where is the exit at? It's not the front door. Is somebody running this place shooting up? Where can I get out of it? And it doesn't come to me that way. I don't think that when I walk into a store. It's just immediate. I'm in the front, in the back, gonna be a meat section or where they bring stuff in. I ain't never seen meat or bread come through the front door. So there's gotta be something in the back, right? So I'm thinking these things as I move through places and I'm just calculating it. The same way you calculated all the lights you ran past and didn't have to think about it when you stopped. So this is how you start to build your plan and thought process. If I'm gonna carry a firearm, I better be prepared with it. That means I better train. I better jump in line with some of the trainings that they have at the Advocates. Maybe I jump into the African American Gun Club and do some training over there and start understanding how to use the firearm. Because how many people come through our class and never come back for training? Just out here with a loaded firearm. So that's a part of the plan. Is I'm gonna plan to carry, I better plan to train. One of the things I learned in the fire department is you train in things you don't do that often. And one thing I ain't never did to this point is had to pull my legal firearm and shoot nobody. So I have to train for that because I don't do it all the time, right? In the fire department, we didn't do a whole lot of fire. There was a lot of ambulance stuff, right? So we had to train the fire stuff. Because when the stuff hits the fan and the whoop whoop goes off and the siren, that's when we got to jump into action and we ain't did no training. Remember I talked about 100 firefighters die every year? Because they don't do that training there. They just sitting back, waiting for that situation instead of training for that situation. So that's the part of planning, is that find out what you plan to do to protect yourself and build your repertoire up to that point. If my plan is to take off and run, then you better have some good Nikes on. You don't need a great gun. You need some good Nikes. If your plan is to defend yourself in a situation when you've been attacked, then you should know how to defend yourself. Because this is the problem. If you don't know how to defend yourself and you pull that firearm out, what you did is just basically brought another gun into your assault. Maybe his jam, I'm going to take yours then. You wouldn't want it anyway because you wasn't training for that. And I've been in real life situations, and LaMaris will talk about his, but I've been in real life situations where I've been put to this test, and I know how I'll respond to it. And if I didn't respond the way I wanted to, then I have to train that part out of me, right? Or train into me being able to respond better. So that's a part of the plan. Figure out your surroundings, change your game, how you move throughout the community. Be obviously uber aware of what's going on around you at all times. If you're in a space that you may feel less in danger in Churchill, I do. I grew up in the area, right? So I feel less in danger there than I do when I go to East Lansing. So switch your mind thing. Yeah, switch your frame of thought. Because you're in a safe place does not mean that's not where people go. Because there's not a whole lot of places to break into in Churchill. Whole lot of places to break into in East Lansing. So where do people go to break in houses? Right? So prepare your plan around all those types of things. And I guess if we had way more time, if y'all come through a class, I'd love for y'all to understand like how more to think about on this level. Like how to think on a self-defense but situational awareness level. Because there's so much more to it, even about how you park. I came into this parking lot out here, wasn't a whole lot of cars back then, but if things hit the fan and you had to jump in your car and hit reverse, I've had to do this. I'd rather just throw it in drive and slam the gas and know I'm going to take out to where I'm going. So these are little things that you can do that a lot of people don't do. You're going to click your car to get in it. Nighttime, we're about to walk out here. It's going to be dark when we leave here, right? Semi-dark. All of y'all women better click that thing and look inside before you get in your car. That's a part of your plan. Those are things. I'm just going to do this little thing. That little thing one day might save your life. Because once you get in there and you put butt to seat, it's over. If somebody in there with you, right?
Out in your own car.
So plan on these types of things. Put all of that in your plan that I'm going to protect myself by, and then I better be prepared to do it this way. There's a lot of people that come through my class, and they have conversation and talk to me about being an advocate. And I'm like, you know what? Are you willing to defend somebody else other than yourself? I'm straight on that. Then you plan for that. LaMaris will tell you he's done this for him and his family. I completely respect that, and he trains for that part of it. So he trains to mind his business situations and move away from. I'm not addressing that, and that's perfectly fine. But he understands that about himself. I understand what I am about myself, so I train for that perspective. So that's your plan. Does anybody have any questions for me about plan? There's tons more, but I know I just already talked a half hour, so I gotta hand this off. So one thing I will say is if you come through a class, has anybody been through a CPL class? Okay, good. When you leave a CPL class, the one thing I say when I'm teaching this class is always, before we start, I want you to do one thing before you leave here. Start to devise a plan. Because when stuff hits the fan, you are not gonna think about any of it. And if you're unprepared, your body's gonna go into motion and it's gonna do one or two things. You're gonna freak out, and I always give this other term, I'm not gonna give it here. You're gonna freak out, or you're gonna result on what your plan is. And if your plan is nothing, then that's what you're gonna fall back on. So as you're listening to what they're about to say, start thinking about what that plan looks like. And you should have questions. I should not have gone through that whole talk and nobody has anything to ask. That means we ain't moving the dial like I would like to see people. So when they get done, when we get to the end of this, let's have a plethora of questions for your own personal situation. How can I do? How can I? What can I? How can I? So thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, I need to stand up because I've been sitting down too long. So I'm gonna start with a simple question, and this is actually why we're here today, right? What is survival mentality? Anybody, go ahead, give it to me. Don't be scared. I'm gonna start pointing. Anybody, go ahead. What is it, man? You got something on you. What is it? Because you was looking right at me. Survival mentality. What is the
Survival mentality to
Yes,
me
ma'am.
is I'm gonna make it out alive.
That's exactly it.
I'm gonna make it.
That is exactly it, right? So what we teach, survival mentality is I'm going home at the end of the day,
That's
right?
it.
I don't care what happens. I don't care how I have to do it. I'm going home at the end of the day. Now, for us, obviously, being advocates in the Firearms Academy, for us, that means that we will utilize the firearm if that happens, right? So that's our preparation. We prepare every day, right? I get up in the morning before I leave my house. I put my firearm on my body. I draw 5 times so that I'm ready. I know what that feels like in the clothes that I'm wearing for that day to get out. Our firearms for everybody. Nah, right? Because in my mind every day, I also have to make the decision that if something is to get in between me and going home, I'm willing to take a life to preserve my own. Is everybody okay with that? I'm not gonna ask you to just out yourself right now because it's all right, right? But understand that that's the capacity you have to be in, right? That mental capacity you have to be in if you're gonna carry a firearm on your body. Not everybody's ready for that. We see it all the time. We see people come through our CPL class, and while we get to that shooting part and they get to shaking real bad, I already know, right? I know right now that you're not the type of person who's gonna pull this gun to protect yourself. If anything, you're gonna pull that gun and give it to somebody and probably get clapped with your own gun, right? If that's not you, does that mean that you just out here willy-nilly? You just SOL? No, right? But what does that mean for you? It means every other aspect of preparation has to be a little bit different and you have to be a little bit more alert, right? So maybe you're okay with carrying mace. That's all right. How many of y'all got mace right now? Nobody.
Oh,
Not on me.
We gotta change that.
Oh my.
Not on me.
Oh my, I ain't worried. Okay. Do you got mace at home though? Have you ever used it?
In my work capacity, yeah.
Really? Good, good. You know how many people come through our class and say they got mace and then tell me they never used it before?
I've never used mine.
We're gonna get with y'all.
So now, understand, are you prepared to use it when you have to? Really?
If I had to.
Really?
So what you saying is you ain't never even sprayed it?
You've
No,
never
I've never
sprayed.
sprayed it.
Oh,
So
then
that's
you
what
don't.
I'm
That's
saying.
different.
So that's what I'm saying. You've never used, so you feel like you're prepared because you have it, but are you actually prepared when you need it?
To kind of add on to that real quick, because this is a
In the
helpful
wheels.
intersection. To all the ladies that are involved in this, if you are interested, once we're done here, get with me. I'll give you guys my contact information. Get with any of us. I will make sure personally that I get you a care package with some self-defense stuff in it. And we can do, if you have mace, pepper spray, you just so y'all know, just like they make dummy guns, they make dummy pepper spray, right? So you can actually practice what that cloud looks like. Get with us, we'll get you.
And this is exactly what I was coming to. If you bought mace, you should have bought 2, right? Because if the first time you go to use it, first you got to figure out what the safety mechanism is because there's a safety mechanism, right? Do you know what it is on your mace? Probably not. So you got to figure that out, right? Then you got to see what the spray looks like because is it a spray or is it a cloud?
Or the phone, you know.
Do we know?
I don't
Right. So do you know what the worst mistake? So I told you earlier I work for MSP, right? I'm a FOIA coordinator. Do you know what that is?
Yes.
Freedom of Information Act, right? So people put in requests to the Michigan State Police because we're a public body. We have to release reports, video, photos, all that. My office takes those requests and I remove anything that can't go out to the public. So I see everything, right? You want to know who gets affected by mace the most often when it's used? The person who sprays it.
Spraying,
Right. You know why?
because
Yeah,
They was fumbling around trying to figure it out, one. Then when they did figure it out, they didn't know what it did, right? Most mace releases a cloud, not a stream, right? So if you release a cloud and you're trying to push towards this person, what did you just do?
you got walked into it.
So are you prepared to use the tool that you thought you was gonna use to protect yourself, or does your tool become the thing that sets you up, right? So this is what we talk about when we talk about preparedness, right? Survival mentality is to get home, right? Don't be the reason you don't get home because you weren't prepared. You decide you want to buy a firearm and protect yourself. If your only class is CPL class, you're not prepared. You know where people jack up? The draw. You got a gun on your person, right? You got a gun in your purse. How do you get to it? How fast do you get to it? Do you know how fast you have to get to it? Statistics say you have to be able to draw your firearm within 2 seconds and get shots off on target. Do y'all know how fast that is? It's fast. Somebody standing 21 feet away from you, so from about me to you, right? Somebody standing that far away from you with a knife can close that distance in 2 seconds. So if I can't get my gun out, put those shots on you before you get to me, what happens to me? It's a bad day, right?
What happens if you shoot that person? Are they still gonna stab you if they wanna hurt you? One
Are
bullet
you ready for that?
don't stop a person.
So to that same effect, if you carry a firearm and it's in your purse, how much longer is it gonna take you to get to it? Preparedness, right? Being prepared. Being prepared is thinking about when this happens, what is it gonna look like? What am I going to do, right? You can't go out of here and be thinking, what if something happens? Because if you're thinking what ifs, you won't prepare for it, right? When this happens, this is what I'm gonna do. If somebody grabs you from behind today, what are you gonna do? Right? That's preparation. Those are the things we need you to think about when you're walking around here. And ladies, I hate this for y'all, I really do. But understand that simply because you're a woman, you're a target. Some dude my size walking around here with a whole different mentality will look at you, see female, and automatically say, I can take her. And there's nothing you can do about it. Until he F around to find out that you're prepared, right? So I'm gonna tell you, personal opinion, especially when I talk to the ladies in my family, ladies in my life that I care about, it's not about one form of protection, right? Every lady in my family has a gun. Every lady in my family has mace. Every lady in my family has a knife. Every lady in my family has a taser. If you can't get to one, get to the next, right? If one fails, get to the next, right? If all else fails, fight for your life. Because you are fighting for your life. But you gotta be ready for that. How many of y'all take self-defense classes, physical self-defense classes? Ever boxed before? Wrestled?
When was the last time you ran full speed? I found out the hard way not too long ago.
Yesterday. This man was about to die. But that's preparation, though, right? Like, so I know, you know, health is all on TV and it's a rage and everything, but it's serious, though, right? And really, it only takes 5 minutes a day. Get up, go for a walk. A 5-minute walk every day will change your health aspect for real. Will change your cardio aspect for real. So that if you got attacked and that adrenaline comes, your adrenaline isn't shutting you down, it's helping you, right? Because when your adrenaline gets going and you're out of shape, what happens faster? Are you prepared to be attacked? No, right? Now your respiratory system has become your enemy. That's a problem, right? And most of the times, when it's ladies, man, it get dangerous for y'all real quick because you're probably fighting an assailant who's bigger than you, stronger than you, right? Does that mean you can't win? Absolutely not. And I don't care if you have no form of training at all, right? If you walk out of here today and somebody grab on you, you use every piece of body part you got to make sure that you don't get put in no car and get taken to somewhere else, right? That is the one thing you cannot let happen. For me, the one thing I can't let happen, I can't take my gun. You're not touching my gun. That's not going down. You touch my gun, now we got to fight, right? And I'm a big dude. You're going to have to wrestle me, right? Other than that, for you ladies, they'll snatch you. and they'll try to put you in a vehicle to take you to point B. Don't let it happen. Whatever happens, gotta happen right here. Use them fingers, clawed eyes. Don't be afraid to do it, right? The easiest spot into somebody's eye socket or into their brain is right by their nose. If you stick a finger in here, push, cook, and pull, he loses an eyeball. How much is he fighting you after that? Probably not a whole lot.
Keys, right?
Use your finger.
I'll tell you something.
Stick a finger in
It's
there.
even easier and nastier to me. Piss the inside of somebody's thigh. Piss your own inside of your thigh.
Okay.
It'll make you stop and drop everything. It's them little things like that. You might not have your hands here and can't get to nothing. Pinch the inside of that thigh. He gonna let go.
It's a pressure point. But those type of things, right? Prepare, man. Start taking classes. Find a jiu-jitsu class, right? Jiu-jitsu is about the best thing you can do. That's wrestling with striking, right? If you can wrestle and strike, you can get away from anybody, you know? If you have to, right?
Go to a rage room. You ever heard of the rage room? I encourage all of you to go to a rage room. I want you to see how loud you can yell, how fast you can move, how hard you can swing something, how hard you can throw something, because you never get a chance to do that in your everyday, day-to-day life. Go to a rage room and just see what it's like.
And see how long you can do it for.
Yep.
Yo, you'd be surprised. I'm surprised. Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I went to one. I was probably in there for 1 minute. I was done. I wasn't even there for a whole minute doing it. I was done. I'm
What's
a
the average
firefighter.
response time for police in Lansing?
I know this. I know you.
I know, I want you, go ahead. What is
It's
it?
about 3 minutes.
So if you in a fight for your life, how long do you have to fight?
Well, let me tell you how much longer it is for actual help, because the police ain't helping you. The police is coming there to tape stuff off. The actual help take about 10, 12 minutes, because we gotta wait for the police to get there, make sure everything's cool, quiet, and calm before the ambulance comes in. So we all get toned at the same time, but we sit around the block and wait. Remember, I was a firefighter, EMT for 10 years. How many shootings I went to and had to sit in the rig while they telling us he's bleeding out. One gunshot, one GSW to the chest, not breathing, and we have to sit here waiting for them to call it calm before we can come in there, which is why we are always talking about being your own first responder, because we ain't got time to wait for the police or ambulance to get there.
So in closing my piece, survival mentality is a mentality, right? A mentality you have to have every day. Preparation is a mentality. Preparation is being prepared to prepare yourself, right? Be ready for any situation. And you have to think of it as a when this happens. So when I start thinking, when somebody walks in the mire, just lets off with an AR, what am I going to do? I know what I'm going to do. I trained for it, right? I trained for it yesterday for 8 hours. That man about took my life, but it's all right. I survived, right? You start training for what are you going to do when somebody breaks in your house, right? Any ladies live alone? When somebody breaks in your house, what are you going to do? You know what the average time it takes for somebody to kick your door in and get to your bedroom? 6 seconds.
Wow.
Right? Are you prepared for that? Understand you in your sleep. You have to come out of your sleep. Notice what's happening and respond in 6 seconds. Can you do it? It's time to prepare. So when you go home today, you might want to start looking at some plans, right? Prepare for it. It's a mentality. I'm gonna get this one off to Mars.
I do want to add real quick before we.
No, Mike. No.
I really love what he just did by giving y'all these little tips. So like,
That's good.
as we're at the end of this, I have a ton of little tips. I know LaMaris does too, and Rob does too. So before y'all do Q&A or after, I would just love to give y'all some little tips, some little things that we just have found along the way that y'all can just take with y'all. So that's what I just want to add that at some point. Little tips.
So my part of it is going to be talking about putting everything to action, right? What happens when something does hit the fan? Before I get to that, kind of related to the ladies, when you're an entrepreneur in Lansing, you're on social media, people know what you do. This town is small. When I walked in here, I knew a bunch of y'all, or you've been my family, or you've heard of at least one or two of us. We know somebody that knows somebody, right? Like Mike said earlier, if you're a popular person, there's a story out there about you, good or bad. And especially when you are doing a lot and you're making things move, you become a target to the lower end of people, right? And that doesn't have a race, a gender, none of that. 90% of crimes that happen violent crimes usually come from somebody that you know. So with that, relating this to the ladies who are entrepreneurs, I want you to be safe. I want you to pay attention to your surroundings. Have a plan. Be prepared. Now, when those things happen, what do? How do you put your plan into action? You put that plan into action, right? So one of the things that I like to talk about are the levels of awareness. Level 1, awareness is what I want us all to avoid. This is called the C word, what we call it, and that's being complacent. That's when you're not paying attention to what's going on around you. That's when I see it all the time. I have a saying, pull your head out of your app. Take your head out of that phone. Pay attention. Right here in Lansing, we've had multiple robberies, at least 3 young black women, 2 of which I got a chance to work with, that have been robbed. And when I got to see the surveillance video of it, it was immediately obvious why they were robbed. You were head down in your phone, not paying attention to a 6'3" dude wearing a full sweatsuit with a hoodie on, pulled super tight in 80-degree weather. Real simple to look up and say, that ain't where I should go. Some people call it a discernment. My mother, she calls it the Holy Spirit, right? So in 2009, that's how I relate this story. In 2009, I went to a party to pick up my girlfriend who's now my wife. And when I walked in, that spirit of discernment, that Holy Spirit, it came in my mother's voice. Saying, what are you doing? You shouldn't be here. Because I had just left church. She told me I needed to take my butt home, and I didn't. And in that moment, I walked in at a level 2 because my grandfather trained me to always pay attention to your surroundings, know what's going on, know when it's not your scene. And for me, when I went in, you ever see that cowboy movie where all the music stopped when you walk in and everybody turned to look at you? Yeah. That was me. I was the cowboy. And I walked in and I was the only person there that looked like me and immediately felt uncomfortable. My discernment, Holy Spirit was screaming at me, you need to leave. So within 2 minutes of walking into that party, I told the person I was there for, I said, hey, I'm about to get jumped. I gotta go. And they're like, what are you? To like the whole table, because all the ladies is over here, but all of the gangsters was in that room. All the women looked at me like I was crazy. But I said, look, get your stuff. I'm leaving right now. And before I could get outside, I got followed by 4 to 5 people, right? And when that happened, different things start going off, right? Because I was at a level 2, which is where you walk around. Some people call it being paranoid. I don't. It's just being aware. So when I walk into a building, I like to know where the exits are, like Mike said. When I sit down at a restaurant, I never sit with my back to the door. One of the things I learned from another one of my partners, Steven, is know from the outside what the inside is going to look like. And what he meant by that was when I met him, he walked around the building that we were training at, and I couldn't figure out, I'm like, what is this weird dude doing? He was going around the building to look at the exits from the outside, because he knew when you go inside of a building, decorations, the way things are set up, those exits aren't going to be obvious, right? When I go into Myers, like Mike said, he said something that was pretty powerful. In every grocery store you go into, bread and meat don't come through the front door. So I know there's an exit or an entrance in that area, right? But if I was to go around the building, I would know, okay, there's an entrance over here. There's an entrance over here. I can't see it, but I can see a room right there. I see the employees only sign. I know there's an exit through there, right? Little things like that. Level 3 awareness is where you might hear something go bump in the night. You might hear that argument 2 aisles over. You might hear some dudes in this other room saying, hey, you see what car he pulled up in? Hey, that's him. Hey, that's him. Hey, that's her. That's her. That's the one that was on TV. That's at a level 3. You start to pay attention to those things. If you're at a level 1, head in your app, not paying attention, you've missed all these signs. And so when you get to a level 4, which is where it has hit the fan, that argument that was 2 aisles over is now violent. Knives have come out, guns have come out. That bump in the night that you heard, that is a 6-foot man standing in your kitchen, right? Naked. And you don't know what's going on because that's the way it happens.
Pinch that thigh.
That is walking out to your car because you were paying attention and turning around and get hit in the mouth with a brick. That's what happened to me. Got hit in the mouth with a brick. That whole plan that I had beforehand, because look, I grew up on the South Side. My dad taught me how to fight. My brother taught me how to fight. I can fight. So my mindset was, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. Already putting that all together as I'm walking out. I'm like, look, they don't know who they mess with. They picked the right one. Now, mind you, I'm at the top of my game at this point. I'm playing football. I actually literally was getting ready to go to Wayne State to go play football. I ran a 4.340, and I was on top of my game, best shape of my life. But all my training was for football, right? And in football, what do? You either avoiding getting tackled or you're running to go get tackled, to make the tackle. So my body was prepared to run, right? My mind said, I'm going to fight. I'm about to tear these boys up. The first one that walk up is going to catch it the worst. When I got hit with that brick, all of that went out the window. My body made a business decision. It did the one thing that I was training to do more than anything else, and that was run. Run wasn't even my vocabulary when it came to fighting. If you want to fight, I'm with it. Let's go. When that brick hit me and I spit my teeth out, I guarantee you I covered 2 city blocks in less than 3 seconds. I was booking. By the time I got down there, a few things happened. So we've gone through the levels of awareness. The other things that happen in these situations are your body has a reaction, right? Adrenaline gets dumped into your bloodstream, your capillaries constrict, blood flow is focused to your major muscle groups, AKA your body is making a decision without you. This is where people get caught up in freeze. We all know the fight or flight. That happens to us, right? My mindset was fight. My body said flight because that's what I was trained to do. So what Mike hit on earlier is your lowest form of training, whatever you were trained to do, is what you're going to do. And if you don't train, you don't have a plan. Ladies, unfortunately, this happens to you guys the most. You fall into a position where you feel like you have to submit to the circumstances. And submission to a person that's bigger and more and stronger than you are and has a different mindset than you is dangerous, right? That ends up with us being chalked out. And I can't live with that. So, for me, that night, once I ran down, one of the things that happened is I got tunnel vision, right? Because we get tunnel vision when something goes off, alarm goes off, gunshots fire off. You become focused on whatever is your threat or whatever may be freedom to you. Whatever your mind perceives as safety becomes your only focus. So that night when I'm in the ambulance, they're asking me all these different questions, like, what street did you run down? I don't know. What cars did you run by? I don't know. What I was able to tell them is, well, the dude that hit me with the brick, he had on a Kobe Bryant jersey. It was a limited edition jersey. He had a tattoo on his arm that said this. He had Victoria on his neck. I was able to give all these details because I was threat focused, right? So in those situations, we teach different skills on how to break that, right? There's easy ways to break that tunnel vision and the different things that happen. Auditory exclusion, which is where if you're in a fight or you if you play sports, people are from the sidelines yelling at you, hey, do this, do that, do this, do that. You don't hear any of that. For me that night, I'm running in circles fighting everybody. Everybody's saying, run, 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 run. He's got a knife. I didn't hear any of these things. I didn't hear it till too late. The guy I was fighting told me, hey, you got it, bro, just run. And I couldn't really put together in my mind, why is he telling me to run? And I felt somebody punch me in the back, turned around because it hurt. Dude about this tall, little guy, arm covered in blood, had a knife in his hand. So in that moment again, my body said, okay, we done fighting, it's time to run. So I took off, running again down the street. By the grace of God, somebody was there. Old man came out, shot in the air, kind of dispersed the crowd, right? A lot of this could have been avoided, one, if I would have listened to my mom, because moms are always right, and listened to that spirit of discernment earlier and just walked out. You know, pay attention. When you feel something in your spirit that doesn't feel right, when you see a situation, don't be in your phone. Pull your head out of your app. Please pay attention to what's going on around you. If it's a dude sitting there with 6 foot, fully covered in 80-degree weather, please don't walk in his direction. One of the things that I like to teach as a defense mechanism that drives my wife crazy is speaking to people, right? I talk to everybody that comes within my 21-foot bubble. The reason it's a 21-foot bubble is because what Rob talked about. If somebody has a knife or a weapon that requires they get up on me, or if they want to rob me, that's 21 feet. That's the distance I need to be able to get this gun out and do what I have to do to defend myself. But I say hi to everyone. Now, I make a lot of friends, but what is a person that has bad intentions going to do when you say hi to them? Better yet, what are they not going to do when you say hi to them? They're not going to speak. They're not going to say hi back. And what does that tell you? That's somebody to watch, right? Rob is real good at saying, hey, how you doing? Scares the hell out of me, but it's very helpful because you call attention to that person. So to my entrepreneur ladies, when you're walking out to your car and you see somebody that looks scary, that might be off-putting, like Mike said, hit that button on your keys, okay? Hit the button on your keys, start your car, light it up, do something. Even if you got to hit that panic button, that gets people moving. But more than anything, your most powerful weapon you have is your voice. Hey, how you doing? That will throw somebody off of their game completely. You've interrupted what we call their OODA loop, which is orient, observe, decide, act, right? OODA. So we call it the OODA loop. We make these decisions all day long. It's a nonstop loop. When you interrupt that OODA loop, you throw off their entire plan and their focus, right? So again, practice that. What Rob talked about, if you have mace, if you have pepper spray, I tell everybody one of the most important things you can carry is a flashlight. Why? Because if I pull a knife out, that knife can get used against me. If I pull a pepper spray out, I can walk right into that cloud. If I pull a flashlight out, if I flash a real powerful flashlight in your eyes, it's gonna stop you dead in your tracks. Just like a deer, you know, whoa, what the hell? Not to mention having something nice, hard, and solid in your hand. That is an excellent weapon. Solid hit right here will put somebody down and make them think twice. Okay, I picked the wrong person. Let me go over here. But to the other side of that, we are the advocates. If you want training in firearms self-defense, we offer all of that. We can be reached at theadvocates.net. Again, that's www.the-advocates.net. I can be reached on all social media, LaMaris Rodgers, that's LaMaris Rodgers, or just get my information from Kia or Miss Thomas. Dr. Thomas, excuse me. I said I'm gonna stop calling you Miss Thomas. Fellas, do you have anything else you wanted to add?
Tidbits, but I mean, open it up for questioning first and then get some tidbits. I bet just some little things that I've noticed that, how did I survive? Like, I didn't tell my life story, but I was engaged in a lot of stupid stuff growing up. So I've survived a lot, and I've learned a lot through that process, and I like to share that information out. But I guess Q&A, if y'all have any questions.
I do want to make one comment. From after your class, you know, like on the class we had, it was a lot of fun. We had a drill at Sexton, and they were like, where would you go? And my partner was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And I said, okay, the bathroom is 10 feet. There's a steel door. That's probably our safest place. And she was like, why? And I explained what you had said about bullets. And she said, well, the window. I said, unfortunately, in that bathroom, because there were so many people coming in, I said, that is steel. I said, that's our safest place to get to. And public safety was looking at me like I was crazy. I said, well, y'all look for me in that.